you want to do it. So now we're live.
I'll follow your lead. How about that?
Okay, well, then good evening and good afternoon, Mr. Ray.
How are you? Good afternoon from Florida.
Oh, that sounds nice. I'm in Western Supermare. It's not as nice as Florida, but it's got a beach.
Which is what's that?
Western Supermare. Sounds awesome, doesn't it? That's where I live.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been to some of your beaches.
Yeah, they're nothing to Florence. Yeah, I'll be quiet now. So, yes, good evening, Mr. Ray. Or is it Nicholas Medina, Ed Raymond, Sherman Scott, Peter Stewart, or Roger Collins today?
Oh, just Fred. Fred will do.
Fred will do. Okay, so thank you. Because, yeah, I didn't notice in your credits you are different names for different things.
Some names that probably never appeared somewhere, and some names that aren't me at all. So there you go.
Oh, okay. Right. We'll start with some of the people that turned up to say hello. So we've got Volker Hanneman from Germany. Good evening.
I know Volker.
Yeah, I've got a question for you then. How did you meet Chuck Sereno? That's pronounced.
You know, I'm not actually sure, but I'm
okay.
Well, I told you that would be the case if I didn't know. I met Chuck, I think, through Jim Wynorski. I knew Jim Wynorski first, and I pretty much probably met Chuck through Jim. And the association goes back probably a couple decades.
Okay.
Maybe 30 years. So it's kind of hard to know exactly, but I pretty much met him through Jim. I'm pretty positive.
Okay. Right. Now are you still an autograph collector? I heard you got Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee's.
Well, you know, there was a time when I used to get a signed photo from the different people I worked with. But as a basic, I got when I was younger, not anymore, not for the last 20 years. But I mean, when I was younger, you know, I got Bela Lugosi, not when he was alive, but off and Lon Chaney, you know, the ones that I really wanted. But mostly the signatures I have are people that I worked with for the most part, you know.
Did you meet Peter Cushing?
I worked on Shockwaves.
That's it. That's one thing. Yeah.
I was the only person on the show who knew who Peter Cushing was.
Oh.
And because I rode sometimes with the producers in their cars, and I asked them how they came to hire these two actors, John Carradine and Peter Cushing. And they told me that they didn't have any idea who these guys were, but that an agent had told them that these were horror stars and that they would be a good name in their movie. So they hired him. They hired him not knowing any of the history of what they had done. So lucky for me, consequently, no one wanted to chat him up. And so there's me going, hey, can I visit you in your trailer? And I sat in Peter Cushing's trailer every day in between things and talked with him and asked him questions and stuff like that. I was a still photographer. And I took a beautiful portrait, which has been misappropriated so many times that I actually found it in a Peter Cushing scrapbook. And I did contact them and let them know that I owned that photo and that they didn't have a right to be reproducing it. And, you know, we came to a friendly agreement. I mean, you know, people think if they see something, it's free. And it's a beautiful portrait of him from the film that I took in West Palm Beach at the Palm Beach Biltmore. But it was pretty good time for me because nobody wanted to really talk to John Carradine or Peter Cushing. So it was just an open door for me. That was great.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah. Because I know Peter Cushing wore slippers on the set of like the Star Wars. Did he, when he was out of shot, he wore these fluffy slippers to be comfortable?
No, he did wear that glove. He did wear a white glove on his hand when he was smoking. Yeah. Okay. And you know what? He said he did it so that his fingers wouldn't get stained because he smoked the worst tar and nicotine cigarettes that are made. They're called Players, and they come in a little box with a little sailor on it. And John Carradine smoked exactly the same brand. And Peter Cushing, you could see that glove. It would turn completely brown where his fingers touched that cigarette. So he was wise. He was wise to be wearing the glove.
So you got Joe Sherlock is here.
Oh, hey, Joe.
You wrote and directed the recently released Piranha Women.
Mm-hmm.
What were you given to start with? Just a title, a poster, any story locations, or was it all up to you?
No, they had Charlie came to me and he said, Fred, I have the greatest poster for a 1980s movie we never made. And he showed me the poster. And he said, you can do anything you want, but if there's some way that we can show something in the movie that looks like the poster, it would be great. So I did a shot of a girl surfing for the opening credits, and you can see the piranhas jumping up and stuff around her, ahead of her as she's surfing. And that was to represent the poster. But otherwise, he let me do pretty much what I wanted. I mean, obviously, he always has notes, and he had his own cut, to finish the show. He was very involved, and they helped me a lot. It was a very short scheduled show. It was very low budget. But for that, we had the freedom to kind of do what we wanted to do. So I was very happy to do it.
Okay. Yeah. So that was released. Is it? It
just came on Tubi the other day. It was. I made it this year. I made it this year. I think it was in April. It's already been on their streaming platform. Now it's on Tubi, and then in 2 months it'll be on Blu-ray. So no moss growing under the feet of the Piranha Women, that's for sure.
No, unfortunately, we can't get Tubi in this country at the moment, so I'll have to wait for the.
Well, I'm sure there's a full moon streaming app somewhere. They have a concept. It's a very strange concept. They wanted it to be in 2 30-minute segments. They wanted it to not be a feature. Because I remember saying, listen, for this much more money, we could make a feature of this. No. 2 30-minute episodes. We'll premiere them a week apart and then join them together later for the Blu-ray or whatever. So I thought it was an interesting concept, but certainly they know their audience and their streaming platform and what their fans want. So I was happy to do it.
Okay. Right. We'll check that out. So we got Alucard from New Orleans. Have there been any of your films of yours that turned out better than you expected?
All of them. No, there are films that, because they're so disjointed. You might shoot the finale on Wednesday, and you might shoot the first scenes of the movie on the last day, and trying to keep a continuity between characters of where they start in a film and where they grow and finish in a film. And it seems very disjointed at times. And sometimes you'll film something and you'll turn away from that and go, you know what, that's going to be okay. And for me, it's usually when some sleight of hand or something that you try to do works out. I would look at Sniper, the Steven Seagal film, and I would say that I thought the shootout sequences, which were immense for us, 30, 40, 50,000 rounds of live ammo blanks, no CGI gunfire in that film at all.
Okay.
But patching all that together from the pieces, because you have to be very careful. There's a lot of live weapons and you can't just call action and this war takes place. So I was very happy with the way that turned out. And I was very happy with the way Chevy Chase's scenes turned out in Christmas in Vermont, because he was ill and didn't show up while we were filming in Buffalo. And I didn't know what to do except to go ahead and shoot all the scenes I was supposed to with the actors and use a person's shoulder in the foreground for him. And then later in Los Angeles, I had to reproduce bits and pieces of those New York sets, shoot him, and then try to tie him in to all the bits I'd shot a month earlier. And it's seamless. It's flawless. And you look at that and you go, yeah, that works. So once I did that, now I get asked to do it every show. Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I see that. Because some of your films have different names. It's like Matthew Binney from Australia. He's got Evil Spawn, but in Australia it's called Metamorphosis. Do you have any control of what films is called? There's a few of them I noticed. You realized were different names in different countries?
Well, when the things go overseas, people have because they also have censorship and things in certain areas of the world. They have the right to cut things out of your film and move them around a little bit. And some people, like there's a lot of my films I see that have different titles depending on what part of the world you see them in. So yeah, no, we don't have a lot of control over that.
Okay, because that sides into my next question, which is Hollywood something hookers, as we had it in the UK. I seem to remember you saying
yeah, they couldn't use the
banned in the 80s.
Chainsaw. They had to put a little picture of a chainsaw in there. That's I thought that was pretty silly.
Yeah.
They gave it a lot of trouble, and then we ended up in some newspaper. I still have the clipping somewhere where we're one of the top 10 films most likely to incite the viewer to commit acts of violence. And I looked at that and I said, this is ridiculous. I don't see how this movie could incite anybody to do anything. And they called it Hollywood hookers in the article. But I was tickled by the whole thing. Strangely enough, they would eventually fly us, me and Michelle, to the UK, and we would show Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers at the Hampstead Theatre.
Oh yeah.
Or at the Everyman Theatre. It's called the Everyman Theatre in Hampstead, and so we were eventually treated like royalty. Eventually.
Because so there's also the scene with Leanna. I can never pronounce it. Leanna Quigley in a paint, and then that's often showed on like daytime television when it was out, and no one realized.
Yeah, I got on to Entertainment Tonight and Hard Copy and Inside Edition, and I think people didn't realize what they were showing.
I bet.
Because somebody posted a picture like that onto my Facebook page years ago, and I got put in Facebook jail.
Oh, okay.
For that body paint shot. So I stopped people from being able to post stuff on my page to keep me out of trouble.
Yeah, that's the trouble. Yeah, that is the trouble. You're not responsible. But yeah. Right. It's okay. Got a question. Are you still going to the movies and watch recent films? If so, which ones?
I haven't been in a movie theater in over a decade.
Okay.
I would go if it's my own film and there's a screening or something for the cast and crew. But I would never waste my money going to a theater to see a new movie. If I'm lucky, I can see something streaming, which is rare. And I watched 20 minutes of Kong versus Godzilla or whatever that was called. And I turned that off. And I started watching Jurassic Park Dominion the other night. And I turned that off. And, I stick with movies I already know. I can watch an old black and white film over and over again and have a much better time than going to a theater and dropping a ton of change,
That's true. It's very expensive these days. So that was another question. If someone gave you $100 million for a movie, what would you make with it?
50 movies.
I thought so. Yes.
I have a big budget project.
Okay.
And someone might, it's one of those things that the chances are so slim that I have better and more productive things to do with my time than to chase it. But it would make a great film for Clint Eastwood or somebody like that. And it's based on historical events, sort of. And it's very interesting. And it has Carnival, but then they made Nightmare Alley in Buffalo while I was there. And I think it didn't do well. And that's usually always the death knell of your pet project is when someone does make a big budget version of something similar and it tanks. No. Now you have no chance for your pet project.
Yeah, that's a shame. So where are we at? Volker again. Will Biohazard play in theaters somewhere soon?
That's I think after we restored Jacko, this group who I'd done some business with reached out to me about repping our theatrical rights because we get asked by people to do screenings of Hollywood Chainsaw and Evil Tunes and stuff a lot. And it's difficult for me And the whatever the licensing fees are, they're fairly minor, down to people just asking to show it for free.
Okay.
And I said I didn't want to be bothered with that. And out of the blue, these guys came and said, we handle this for these other people. How about you? And so I said, okay. And I made them a deal for Hollywood Chainsaw, Evil Toons, Alien Dead, Biohazard, and Evil Spawn. I said, are you sure? And they said, yes. I said, okay, you can do Evil Spawn. But it's up to them. They're just going to contact me every quarter or so and tell me who they booked it with and where it played and how much money they owe me. So I don't.
Right.
I kind of did it so I wouldn't have to be involved, you know?
Okay, yeah. So
there's a lot of weird stuff coming out, though. There is a Hollywood Chainsaw VHS coming out with an action figure attached. I'm not kidding. I've seen it. Right. There's a little hooker with a chainsaw action figure that comes with this VHS. And there's a line of Hawaiian type shirts coming from Japan from a company called Wacko Maria. And they've taken the Hollywood Chainsaw poster and turned it into a clothing line. They also do Texas Chainsaw Massacre and other places like this. So they're totally legit. Okay. How they're going to do, I don't know, because they're charging around $300 a shirt. And I said, thank God I get a sample for free. I would never buy one at that price.
Yeah, that is. I saw a video earlier where you mentioned you had the Evil Toons. You had a box of animation cells that you were giving away to people that wrote in. Do you have any of those left? I threw them away.
Nobody really seemed to want them, and they were in the thousands. I kept one cell for myself, and maybe the rotoscope paper that went underneath it. I don't have it framed. It's just in a box somewhere. Yeah, we tried giving them away, and they're just, you would think that would be a very popular thing. Maybe today it would be, but these boxes weighed, 100 and some odd pounds of thousands, because they were all hand-painted cells. So it was a bit much to keep dragging from warehouse to warehouse. So I got rid of them.
Okay. So do you enjoy being in your own movies? Sometimes you cameo as a person, uncredited or a person. No, okay.
I've been in other people's movies. It had some. I've actually made a bit of money sometimes. Like I was in Naked Obsession, Dan Golden's first film, and I was in The Wasp Woman for Jim Wynorski, and here and there. I would do something, Vampire Vixens from Venus. I think I did some little thing there. But usually I would walk through a shot. If the shot was going down and I thought, oh my God, there should be a cross here. And there's nobody over there. Because they cue them, they set people up. And then the assistant directors, they direct background. I don't do it. But then they point and different people make moves and stuff. And I'd see that it was blank. And sometimes I would walk in front of the camera, armed response. I'm in that about 5 times. Because I kept putting myself in where I thought something was empty or bare. I would put a hat on, take a hat off, and I would do it at the last moment. I would just walk through. And I surprised in the opening credits, there's a big crane down through Chinatown. And you see me walk through, and Ross Hagen stops and shakes my hand. And it was totally a surprise because I just took off. Those were the days when I used to wear white tennis shoes. So you can always tell it's me. I had white tennis shoes.
So do you think you've got more films with bikini in the title or Christmas now?
Well, the bikini movies was almost sort of a franchise that we had a contract with HBO, who owned Cinemax. And there was a lot of people who made those. There were a lot of directors, a handful, more than a few, who directed these bikini movies. And we had what I called company names. Like Andrew had a company name called Noble Henry, Noble being the name of his grandfather. And sometimes Noble Henry was Jim Wynorski. Sometimes it was Andrew Stevens. Sometimes it was me. Sometimes it was me and Jim on Virtual Desire. Jim and I directed that together, but Noble Henry. And then, of course, it starts causing confusion because people think that Noble Henry is Jim Wynorski. So then Andrew uses it to produce a bunch of movies, and then people think that Jim Wynorski produced movies that Andrew Stevens did because of this Noble Henry name that was just floated about. And I don't know how many of those movies we made for Cinemax, but I would think it might be almost 70. It feels like it was a lot. It was a great business because we did them every year. Sometimes we do them twice a year, but we do 2, 3, 4 of them sometimes at a time. And it gave people who were friends of mine a chance to direct. It gave them a chance to write, and some of them to produce, and some of it got to a point. At one point, I never even went to the set unless there was a check that had to be signed in a hurry. I wouldn't even go down there unless there was a problem. I would go down and put out a fire, which did happen a few times. But it got to the point where it was great because I didn't show up at all.
Okay. Oh. Yeah. Patrick from Have Cheetah Will View, it says it's cool that you're doing Christmas movies. Did you move into that on purpose, or was it you saw the market was going that way, that they were popular and easy to make?
You know, that sort of stuff chooses you. I was doing a movie called Nuclear Hurricane, and really late at night one night, it was freezing cold. It was a tropical movie, and we're out there with a rain tower on us, and in between takes, the water was freezing. It's turning into ice. And I don't know if you've seen the film, but it's where they go into the barn and the girl has a baby. But they came out and they said, do you want to do this Christmas movie? We need to start on a certain date. And I thought, well, yeah, okay. And it had Jason Connery, and James Hong was in it, and Cynthia Gibb. And so I did this Christmas movie called An Accidental Christmas, and it went really well. And Lifetime got it. They still play it. It's 10, 12 years old now. They'll play it this year. They'll play it every year. And so that Christmas movie and the success of that film led to another Christmas movie,
right? Called
it's the one with George Wendt from Cheers. It's called A Christmas Wedding Date. It's really Groundhog Day. And these were starting to get picked up. And like most of my other films, I could do them for a price, and I'd be on budget, on schedule, and a professional film that would be network television quality. And one film just begets another. And I hit a stride with a movie called A Prince for Christmas.
Yes.
Where we went out to do it, but we got luckier than we thought we would when someone showed me a steam engine train, like from the 1800s. It was in a barn. And I said, could I get that? Can I get that train? All I needed to do is to pull up. And it took three days. They ran the coal burners or whatever it is on this train so that it could pull up into this shot while I did this crane and stuff. And it was just magical. I mean, it was just incredible. And that film catapulted me into this other Christmassy stratosphere. I just looked at my director's cut, working on my director's cut today of a new Christmas movie. I've done 2 this year.
Right.
So I've worked 3 times this year. I did a Christmas movie earlier in the year with William Baldwin for GAC, which is the new network.
Okay.
It's called A Royal Christmas on Ice. It was an ice skating movie.
Oh, yes.
And I just finished a movie for Ion, and I just looked at my director's cut today, but I think they're still keeping the title of that under wraps, so I can't talk about that. Okay. But yeah, I've done like 17 of these things that I, by my own count, and maybe 13 or 14 of these women's thrillers for Lifetime.
Did the women's thrillers, did they start off after the success of like Basic Instinct and other stuff that came out around that time?
You know, I can't remember, but it feels like I did a movie called House of Secrets with Bianca Lawson and Costas Mandylor. And it was a girl who moves into a house and she keeps hearing noises, and there's someone living inside the walls of her house. And I did that. And again, it went on real well. She got on Good Morning America, and they ran clips, and it became a national thing because it was based on a real story. And that begat more of these Lifetime thrillers. And I started making them for other companies, and I had got spread around. And I enjoy doing those. The last one I did was last year called Killer in My Backyard.
Nice.
And they are what they are. But there is a market for them, and there is a right way to do them and a wrong way to do them. And I think I'm doing them right. They keep hiring me.
Well, yeah, yeah, that's definitely the successful option.
I go where the paycheck leads me. You know, I thought when I got in this business, I thought I would just make horror and sci-fi films because that's what I was interested in. But it wasn't. As soon as I did the Tomb and Star Slammer, I was offered this Lee Van Cleef movie called Armed Response, and it was action. And I didn't see myself as an action director, but I said, of course, I would say yes. And I did this movie, and next thing you know, it had a 100 theater opening in New York City and billboards on Sunset, and all of a sudden, no more horror offers. It was all action. It was all action. And if you want to survive in this business, I think you have to be able to shift around to whatever genre needs you. If you want to stay employed, if you're just doing this as a hobby and you're doing this to entertain yourself and show your friends something, you know, that's fine. But if you want to, you know, buy a house and raise 4 sons and be a single parent, as I have been several times in my life, you have to make a living. And I didn't want to have a side job. I wanted to be a director for reals in my life. That's what I wanted to be. And you know what? I quit a factory job in 1984, I think, to try my hand at being a director, and I've never done anything since. I mean, I've done other things, but I've never done anything to earn a living since then, but be a director. I mean, I started a DVD Blu-ray company as a hobby, and I'm still the only employee of that company. You know, but God bless it. It keeps going and it's doing great, and I have a fun with it. And I don't do it to make a massive profit. I have to do it specifically because I do have filmmaking chores. I have to do that first. So,
right.
You know, I'm a filmmaker. I make a living by telling a story with a camera, and that's how I view myself.
Yeah. Okay. Bellow Wolf, what do you plan for the rest of the year? Do you ever take a holiday or?
You know, we've been, you know, because I do, when you travel this much, I've just been living in a hotel in Calabasas next to Kim Kardashian for the last 31 days.
Right.
I haven't been home in 31 days. And over here, you can't see it, but there's a big aquarium there with my little boy, Tiny. And he's a little turtle I found when he was this big on my back porch. He's like this big now. And there are animals and people who rely on me. So
yeah,
I would like to not work again this year. I think we're going to try to go to Buffalo and make another Christmas movie in February. So I would like to work on a script for that. We do have a standing offer to do a shark movie here in Fort Lauderdale. And I do want to do that. I'm thinking of doing that with Andrew Stevens. But I gotta, you know, it's just scripts are, you know, if I write my own scripts, you know, then I have to do all the brain work, but then I end up with a script that I know we can film for the price. So I have to take it slow. And I'm a football enthusiast. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers is my team. And don't say I'm a bandwagoner because I've been a Bucs fan since they were in the mid-70s. Buccaneers fans know how to lose. We invented losing. So don't say I jumped on when Tom Brady came along. I hated Tom Brady.
Okay.
I don't no more. But I want to watch football. I've got a book I'm working on. I'm working on 2 books right now. I have one that just came out, and it instantly became #1 bestseller on Amazon. It held that position for 6 weeks. And I was stunned. That we went in and became #1 and held that position for that length of time. So I have 2 other books I'm working on, and I have a lot of football games to watch. But to answer the question, yes, we do want to take a vacation. I'm doing Spooky Empire in Orlando on October 21st. I'm doing a convention appearance. I did maybe 5 since I came back to Florida because they're so close by. But we were just talking last night about perhaps going to Salem, Massachusetts, and to Marblehead in the fall, and taking a short vacation just for fun, because I do so much traveling for work, you know.
Yeah, I guess being at home is like a holiday.
Well, you know what? You pay a lot to live in a place like this. You can't see it, but I said, yeah, at the end of the day, I want to sit down and put my feet on that table and turn that television on and put on House of Dracula. I mean, that to me is the end of my day. The last thing I want to do, and I have friends who see things differently, but I was never a person to hang out in bars and try to meet girls or stuff like that. To me, it was a waste of time. If I found a girl I liked, I would stick with her for however long the relationship might work out so that I could concentrate my mind on doing those things that I find important to me. Chasing girls is not a livelihood. It's a diversion. Find a good one, stick with them, and then get some real shit done, you know?
Go Bucks. There you go.
So far, so good.
The Bucks went 0-14 in their first year. Okay. Yeah. Christopher Olen Ray is still directing, isn't he?
Oh, I thought it was a question from Chris. I looked at it. I was like, Chris is he still directs, and he has a big project. I don't know how secretive it's supposed to be, but
Right.
he has a big project coming up. It's already pre-sold to a fairly big distributor, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does with it. So, yeah, he's a line producer as well, and he line produced my last movie, and he did Piranha Women with me, and he did Royal Christmas on Ice. Whenever we can work together, it's a good thing, and we do like to do it. But when the opportunity comes up, he could probably direct more than he wants, than he does. But you know, he's looking for the projects that interest him as well. You know, he's much bloodier minded than his father. His stuff can be really gory. That Circus Kane was uncomfortable to watch.
Okay.
If you've seen that.
No, I'll have that one up. Okay.
Yeah.
So where are we? Yeah, Noth from Pro Physical Media. Evening. My question, as someone unfamiliar with your bodywork, he knows Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. Yes, I added that. What of your films do you feel do not get enough love that you could recommend?
You know, to me, there was a period of time where we made movies that I had a talk with Jim not too long ago. They were dispensable movies. It's as if we didn't make them. They were movies that served a purpose at the time and filled a bill for somebody that they needed. And the films, it's almost as if we'd never made them. They don't have a fan base. Nobody revisits them. But they were like 1.3 million a piece. They were some of the highest budget films that I ever did. But they're not, you know what I'm saying? Nobody even, it's like somebody said to me a while ago, "Oh, Fred, are you going to direct anymore?" I said, "I'm directing at least 3 features a year. You're not watching the right channels."
Yeah.
I personally love this Lifetime movie I did called Deadly Shores. And I think you can see it on Amazon. And it was a lighthouse movie. And all I ever really wanted to do was make a movie in a lighthouse. I love lighthouses. And so I took a little bit of William Castle's movie, The Night Walker. I took Dark Shadows. I took a classic called Rebecca and a couple other things, and Haunting Fear. And I placed them all in a lighthouse.
Okay.
And that's a movie that I wish more people would watch, because even though it's on Lifetime and it's female centric, it has all the trappings of a good pulp horror novel.
Okay.
And so I'm very fond of that. And I did another one, was like Phantom of the Opera, called Stage Fright with Jordan Ladd. And that's a Phantom of the Opera sort of thing. And I did that for Lifetime. And I feel like that. And another one called Unwanted Guests, which does actually have a fan base. It's not a Fred Ray fan base. It's a fan base for the movie.
Okay.
And so some of these, and Dying for a Daughter, that's another one, Dying for a Daughter. These are films that I think are really pretty good. And then if you go back a bit, Venomous with Treat Williams and Mary Page Keller, that's a rattlesnake movie. And I mean, we risked our lives to make that movie. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Because those snakes were not defanged and they weren't milked. And they would dump a garbage can of 30 rattlesnakes on the floor around your feet with 2 guys to wrangle them with like golf putters. And I finally, because I wasn't that afraid, I said, give me one of the putters. I'll help wrangle them. And so I got in there and I like, you know, and some of they would come over the barriers and they'd be in your lap. And it was just, but it was a pretty good movie. And we staged this whole military takeover of a town with the helicopters and tanks and all that. And it's really quite a film. And I think it's probably on Tubi for free. But I really liked Venomous. And I love Hatfields and McCoys. You know, I made that for no money, but it had Jeff Fahey, Christian Slater, Perry King, Tim Abel, Ted Monty, Priscilla Barnes, had a great cast. We made it in Kentucky for no money, but I'm very proud of that film, and I wish more people would take a look at it.
Right. Okay. Danny from the Trash Dash. He loves your movie Sideshow.
You know, a lot of people say they do. I rewatched it recently when I did Piranha Women. They gave me a little membership to the Full Moon Streaming, and there it was with William Shatner playing horror host, introducing the movie and cutting himself into the film. It was quite an experience. I made that in the year 2000, January 2000, because my son Max was only a month old. He was born in December of 1999. We made it the old Corriganville movie ranch owned by Ray Crash Corrigan, the guy who played gorillas in a lot of movies and played It, the Terror from Beyond Space. And we filmed it there, and it was freezing cold. They had these jet heaters. If you stood in front of them, it would burn you. If you stood right out of the blast, you would freeze. And Brink was in that. Richard Gabai was in that. Pete Spellos, Phil Fondacaro. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed making that one quite a bit. I had even gotten a kiddie carnival to come in with rides. So we'd have these lights, because to me, it's detail, light, shadow. That's what I like. And at the last moment, Charlie didn't want to pay for it. So there are no rides. So I didn't know what to do. So I went to the Home Depot and I bought some garden trellises, these like cheap wooden crosshatch things. And I used them as light holders. So I took a bunch of Christmas tree lights and I put them on these trellises that were 4 by 8 feet panels. And then I would just move them around in the background in the scene so that you could see some kind of lights and stuff in the background, sort of out of focus, to give it more of a carnival look. But the makeup was tremendous. I think Gabe Bartalis, did that. And it was so elaborate and took so long. There's a girl on stage who peels herself open and her face open. It's not the same actress. We couldn't afford to take the time to wait for the girl in the movie to be made up. So we hired a girl who looked like her, and that girl sat in a makeup thing for 10 hours. And then 2 hours before the sun came up, they brought her in and she took the place of the other girl. So there were actually 2 girls playing that one role.
Okay. Hollywood magic.
You know, Phil Fondacaro, if he's watching this, that guy weighs a ton. He's a small guy. He's a little guy. He has a top hat, and he's a great actor. But he would say, Fred, it put me on the stage. And I went to lift him up. That guy weighed a ton. I don't know how much he weighed. For a little guy, he weighed a ton. I was probably sitting somewhere going, fuck you, Fred.
You directed Steven Seagal, who has a reputation for being a bit difficult, I've heard. But was he all right for you?
I would say I probably had one of the better experiences.
Okay.
We didn't have any trouble. The only problems we had were in the script stage, which wasn't really a problem. He just kept wanting me to fire the female lead. There was only one. There were 2 girls in the movie, but he didn't want her in the film. He said he didn't understand why we needed this woman. And I said, well, we need her because in the military, you would never say to your buddy something that he should already know, but the audience needs to know. So I need a person who could ask the questions that the audience needed to know so that the military guys didn't have to look dumb asking each other obvious questions to them.
Right.
And I surrounded everybody, the whole crew, as much as we could. The crew and the cast were veterans. The guy playing the medic, he was a real medic. He'd only been out 2 months. Matt Anderson, I think, was a Green Beret sniper. Tim Abel was an Army Ranger. Chris Ray was in the Navy. I was in the Navy. There were a bunch of people that were all military guys. So Seagal, there was no blood in the water. You know what I'm saying? There was nowhere for him to go and say he knew better or knew more or was more of an expert. He was surrounded by experts, and that kept him in line. He just kind of did his part and said, you know, stand here, say this, and we got on fine.
Okay, good. Have any of your films been real trouble? You had to edit them right down for either the UK or US censors back in the day, or now, or?
You know, it's hard to say. Scalps. When I tried to restore Scalps, I realized there was no uncut copy in the world. The only uncut copy in the world was the original theatrical 35 millimeter release. When it came out in America, they left the horror intact, but they took 8 minutes of the movie out so they could put it on a cassette with another film. Then every other country in the world cut the gore down to the point that when we got the negative back, when I got the negative back, they had taken all of the gore scenes out and replaced them with paintings of Indians hunting buffaloes. And right as someone would come at this guy with a knife, it would cut to a shot of an Indian with a bow and arrow over a buffalo, and it would pan down to the buffalo, but you would hear the original audio. And so I had to go back to the American VHS because no country in the world had the gore scenes in the untruncated in their releases. Yeah. So I had to up-res the VHS scenes and put them into the 35 millimeter HD. Now, since then, we did locate a 35 print and we did do a 2K scan of it, or a 4K scan, I'm not sure. But I haven't restored the film anymore. Half of me says it would be a cheap shot to the people who had already bought it to now come out and say, oh, now it's not VHS in the spots anymore. Now it's 35, you should buy it again. I mean, they do that with Hammer films and people are happy for it, but I kind of felt like, would people really want yet another version of Scalps if they knew the gore scenes were from 35? But we do have it. That's a possibility. That's the most censored film I've ever been involved with. I mean, when you consider the fact that every version of it in the world was censored for violence, except the U.S. home video release and theatrical release.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bella's asking, Bad Girls from Mars needs to be remastered.
You know, it's funny. That's one of those films where we actually technically own it, but the distribution rights are with Lionsgate in perpetuity, which means we never get the rights back. When they put it out, there's no sex in that movie. If you've seen the film, it's a lot of dancing around or whatever. But they wouldn't give it an R rating. They wanted to give it an X rating. And I said, I don't get it. Why? They said, there's no sex in this film. They said, it's just the preponderance of nudity that's bothering us. It's the sheer volume. And so I said, okay. So they kept cutting it. They cut 8 minutes out of it. So the original 35 millimeter cut version is 8 minutes longer than the one everybody's been seeing. And I have the negative. I have all of the original elements because we own the film. But Lionsgate won't report to me. They owe me a report. They wouldn't report on the DVD. They won't report on the Amazon. They basically said, if you feel like you want to sue us, go right ahead. And I thought, well, I don't know what they might owe me. It might only be $2,000, $3,000. Why would you really want to go down a $10,000 or $20,000 lawsuit path to find out that you were owed $2,000 or $3,000? Although, if you prevail, they would owe you that $20,000. So the bottom line is they've got an old scungy 1-inch from 1988 or whenever that movie was made. I'm sitting on a pristine 35 millimeter negative that they will never access. I will never let them have access to the 35 millimeter elements. And I have asked a few times if I could have the rights or could even buy the Blu-ray rights myself of my own movie, which I have done before with Dinosaur Island. I paid Roger Corman to get Dinosaur Island on my own film. But it's never going to be on a Blu-ray until somebody comes around and decides to treat us, right and honor our contracts.
Do you get offers from boutique labels to bring out on a massive box sets or special editions?
No, I think people understand that we own our own Blu-ray label.
Okay.
So what would be the purpose of me? We did get an offer, and of course it led to something. We had an offer. This sounds ridiculous, but we had an offer to someone wanted to restore Jacko from the original negatives, and they then were going to give me this and this and that and that, and they were going to get this and that, and I did the math, and I said, well, at the end of the day, though, you're going to license my film to one of my competitors, and the normal licensing for the producer is about 25% to 30%, and you can negotiate, but you get less than they do. So I said, I'm gonna take 25% of my own film from one of my competitors. Why wouldn't I just do this myself and own everything? And I did. They gave me the idea, and I transferred the negatives, and I just transferred Bikini Drive-In. I transferred all of the original camera negatives to HD, and we're working on restoring that as well. So, we thought about a box set because I could put out a great box set, but my films haven't been unavailable like Ray Steckler's films or Bill Grafay's films or Andy Milligan's films. My films have been available, so who would want a box set of 4 or 5 things that have already been out for years? I can't see it.
I think there's plenty of people here.
Well, in the UK, I've done some stuff with 88 Films.
Yes.
And I've done some stuff in Germany. But yeah, it would be better. But then they come to you, and I'll be honest, I have no trouble with 88 Films or any of those other guys. They've always done exactly what they promised me they would do. But they come in and say, oh, Fred, it's only going to sell 1,000 units. This is why we can't pay you hardly anything for the rights. And I thought, well, then what's the purpose? I mean, I understand exactly what it costs to make 1,000 Blu-rays, and I know exactly what you can expect to get back from selling 1,000 Blu-rays. And it's not worth it if you're not doing more than 1,000 units. It's not worth the effort.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah. Okay. Would you be okay if someone joined to speak to you face to face for a question?
Yeah, like I said, as long as there's no danger involved.
I'm hoping not. So I'll put the link in. So if anyone wants to join and ask a question,
around my house, forget the dog. It's beware of owner in this house. It's my friend Matt Anderson, the guy I was telling you about, who was the Green Beret sniper. He put up a thing that said, "This locked door is on this house for your protection."
Yeah. So I'll just put the link in the chat. So if anyone wants to join in, we'll give it a minute. But what was it like working with Ice-T on was it Air Rage?
I did three or 4 movies with him. So which one?
Yeah.
or just Ice in general.
Yeah.
A lot of movies. I did a bunch of movies with rappers. There was a guy named Dub C, and I did a movie with Coolio. And I did maybe 3 movies with Ice. And Ice is very business-like. He's really savvy kind of guy, but there's that weird side to Ice. And we were out maybe 2 or 3 in the morning on a movie called I think it was called Submerged. No, it was Stranded or Black Horizon, whatever the title is, the space shuttle movie. And I see Ice over to the side, and he's talking on a cell phone at 2 or 3 in the morning. We're outside the Tillman Water Treatment Plant, which was Starfleet Academy in that TV series. And I walked over and I said, who in the world could you possibly be talking to at 3 o'clock in the morning? He said that he had some prostitutes walking the strip. He didn't call them prostitutes, but and he said he was talking to one of them. He said, here, you talk to her. And he thrust the phone at me, and I said hello, and she said hello. And I just kind of shook my head, and I handed it back to him, and he finished his call. And I said, I don't get it. I said, you have everything going for you. I think he had a TV series at the time because he flew in and shot our movie on the weekends.
Oh, right.
And he said, Fred, he goes, if you got enough hoes walking the block, it adds up. And I've never forgot it. Don't let the little things slide. They will add up. As Andrew Stevens would famously say, we're looking for nickels to make a dollar. And it means don't overlook the small things. It does add up.
Yeah. Can we have a Spydora Blu-ray release, please? The short is so good. So good.
You know, it's funny. Almost every award that I've won was won for that movie. The problem is I went ahead and did something people never do with a short film. I put it out on DVD. And I put it with a feature and behind this, I put a second feature out, something similar. And I made 400 copies, or I made 500 copies. I have 400 left. And Blu-rays are expensive. The problem with the internet is you keep hearing, we need this on Blu-ray, we need this on Blu-ray. And what it is it's 10 guys sounding like 100 guys. Mm-hmm. And if you take the bait and you drop the money for the Blu-ray, you're going to go $4,000 or $5,000 to create 1,000 Blu-rays, which is the minimum run. And then you're going to get stuck with 950 Blu-rays that you can't sell. Yeah. So if you have a small company like mine where every release is important, you know, a failure, it won't wipe me out, but you try to avoid them because it's a hobby and it's your own money in your pocket you're digging out. So you're not really prepared to take things as a loss, especially when you see that it performed poorly as a DVD, which are 85 cents a piece, as opposed to Blu-rays, where the first 1,000 are about $4 a piece to produce. Okay. So no, you're not going to see Blu-ray. You know, I could make a limited burn on demand, but I find that fans don't want that. They don't like that. They want that glass mastering disc. But that's the only way I could see Spydora being a Blu-ray. But it is a wonderful film. And a lot of people, including Volker, pitched in to help make it a reality. And it's one of my proudest achievements. And I love it, flat out.
Okay. What's the biggest budget you've dealt with? Because was it Deep Space? Was about $2 million back in the day?
Deep Space, as a director, there are other films that I worked as a writer or producer on that went beyond that. But Deep Space and Jersey Shore Shark Attack, they don't look like they cost the same thing, but I think they did, you know. But back in the late 80s, 87, I think, when we did Deep Space, you know, $1.8 million went a little ways. It was a 7-week shoot. 5 of them were all-night shoots. So it was a grueling film to be sort of, in my opinion, ruined in the post-production phase. You know, I thought that they cheaped out on the musical score and used a library score from a guy because he'd done a Charles Bronson movie. And I thought the music was some of the worst that ever appeared in one of my films. And it was very clear that I did not have my hand in the scoring of that film.
Okay. It's the Phantom Empire. You've done a few with Civil Danning, haven't you, over the years?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've done a couple. What's the question?
I was just going to the list of who you've a lot of people you have worked with.
I mean, you know, I've had Thanksgiving dinner at her house. Her and her mother have come to my house. We've known each other since way back when. We did The Tomb together, and we did Phantom Empire, and we did The Lair, the TV series. I brought her in the last part of the 3rd series with the idea that I would expand upon her role. She was like the queen of the vampires. And little did we know that the 3rd season was going to be our last. I would have wrapped it up better if I'd have known that last episode was the finale. So people kept saying, well, what happened? And I said, well, I had no clue there wouldn't be a season 4. I had all kinds of plans for The Lair. If you've ever seen it, I don't know if they
get it. I don't think we can get it over here. I don't think.
Well, it was very much like a Dark Shadows. I mean, it was so obvious, but it had everything. It had the plants like from the Outer Limits that would open up and then spray something in your face, and that plant was dead on a piece of rock from Stonehenge with some ruins on it, and they found some gold doubloons, and the plant would only bloom during a moonlight. So they put the Lumina orchis, I think we called it. They had an artificial moonlight generating plant in this doctor's lab. Then you knew this young kid who was a werewolf. You knew that he would break in, and the moonlight lamp would shine on him, and he'd become a werewolf in this people's house. And and it had a head like the skull that they dug up, and we did the through the eyes, like in the movie The Skull.
Yeah.
And it tore people's throats out, and it was like a monkey's paw. You get a wish if you possess the head. And it had a Gorgon, a male Gorgon, which the makeup effects were all practical, no CGI. And they had all the snakes, and he was turning people into stone. It was really 28 episodes. It was quite a show. And it was groundbreaking in some ways if you've ever seen it. So
yeah, okay.
We were really
recently for the Bay.
What about the Bay? I didn't get the question.
You recently won an Emmy for that one.
Yeah, we've been nominated 3 times, and only won once. And Chris was involved in that, and they needed some advising and help in their post-production. And so I came on board as a producer, and then moved up to executive producer. And I was very pleased, because you don't get an opportunity to win an Emmy or an Oscar every day. There's a reason why people are photographed holding those things up. So I wish we could have gone the year that we were in attendance and were nominated. We didn't win. It was a wonderful evening. But we ended up sitting on the couch at Chris's house watching football player Michael Strahan announce us as the winner during COVID. And I was so disappointed that we weren't able to go down there and be there in person. That would have been great. But it's still the same statue, and it sits in my little trophy case. Actually, it's a big bookcase out in my living room. I'm very happy to have it. It would have been nice to win 2, but to be honest with you, I really wouldn't care after you've won 1. I don't care. 2 wouldn't make me feel any better.
Yes, it's nice to be recognized, isn't it?
Unless you're on America's top 10 most wanted.
So yeah, Prison Ship. Last Slam of the recycled a lot of stuff from other films. New.
Well, we started doing that very early in the Tomb, where we got hold of, thanks to Bob Tennell, a guy who worked with me, he got hold of the set from a Wrangler's Blue Jean commercial that looks like Indiana Jones. And he got the set, and the set made me want to shoot something, and I did, and it turned it into the Tomb. But it became aware to us that a lot of things that were made for other films were sitting around somewhere available to rent. The Logan's Run Land Rover, the padded suits from Metal Storm. There's a lot of things out there that are from other people's movies that are still around, and you could rent them. So it seemed to make sense. I mean, why build a mummy case for Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers when you could get the one of Grace Jones from Vamp?
Oh, yes.
Now, I mean, you can see his face on it if you look, but who cares? And the sets, the Hooker's temple set was from a movie called House 2. Oh, yeah. And where John Ratzenberger looks through a hole in the wall and he says, I think what you got going on here is your basic Aztec temple. Well, that set became the Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers temple set at the end of the movie. So, yeah, I've done a certain amount of that. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
No. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's have a look. See. Wasn't the lair connected to Dante's Cove?
Yes. And there was some, I was a supervising producer of Dante's Cove for seasons 2 and 3 in Hawaii. And when I came back, I said to them offhandedly, because it was a television network that didn't have a lot. I was making some movies for them, but they had they ran all day and all night, but they only had like a handful of shows. I said, you guys, you need some filler. You need something in between these things that's new to keep people coming back who've already seen all the other stuff.
Right.
And I said that we had made these movies for Cinemax very cheaply, and that I thought maybe we could do something along that budgetary line for them. And they said, great. First, they wanted to call it Dante's Lair, but there was a legal issue with whoever created the original Dante's Cove series. So we couldn't call it Dante's Lair. So we just called it The Lair. And they said I could do anything I wanted as long as I hit these sort of notes, because it's a gay TV series, and it had to have a couple things in it, each episode. But otherwise, I could tell my story. So I kind of jumped at it, and the first season was pretty hokey because it only had a $60,000 budget for 6 half-hour episodes. That's no money at all.
Yeah. Okay.
And it kept growing. For whatever reason, it was a gritty little comic bookish kind of show, but it didn't have the gloss of Dante's Cove. But what it did do is it delivered in other areas that Dante's Cove wouldn't go into. And so the next season we went to 9 episodes, and the budget went up. And now they're doing comic books, and there's Outfest, and the guys are on the red carpet, and people are starting to pay attention to this show that everybody was ashamed of but me. And then come the third season, it was 13 episodes. In total, I think it came to 28 altogether. And it was pretty cool. I mean, and like they said, they gave me a pretty free hand to do what I wanted. On Dante's Cove was much more elaborate. Tracy Scoggins was in it. It was filmed in Hawaii. It was an IA show. And I just kind of ran troubleshooting. And if the show fell behind, I would come in and I would direct some scenes to catch us up to schedule. One time an actress quit. She quit, and we'd already started filming her. So we flew a girl named Jill Bennett, who I think was in the L Word. We flew her to Hawaii, but now we had to go back and reshoot all the close-ups of the other actors and reshoot them with Jill Bennett and replace this girl. And I did all of those. I did all those bits and stuff. And I stunt coordinated the show. There you go. A little bit of everything.
Well, yeah, I see from just your IMDb, you've done was producer, writer, actor, camera, and electrician, additional crew, second unit director, assistant director, visual effects, cinematographer, special effects, art director, and so on and so on.
That's most of that's just BS, isn't it? That's bullshit. I would remove almost everything from my IMDb if I could. That stuff's nonsense, and a lot of it's not even true. I'm supposedly an actor in movies I've never heard of before. One called Save Me or Rescue Me or something with Dee Wallace. I'm never in that movie. And then they say I'm an uncredited director on Sam Urban's movie Sister of the Bride. I never heard of Sister of the Bride. I definitely was not an uncredited director on that movie. I don't know where this stuff gets started, but they'll report anything. Doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Yeah, I think it's just if you name someone can do it, can't they? And unless you go in and tell them.
How come I'm not on Ted Michaels' Operation Overkill or whatever it's called today? I said that was the first film I ever worked on in Los Angeles. I said, I don't have a credit on that film. There are other films where I said, they go, well, how do you know this? I said, I am Fred Olen Ray. I am not in this movie. I never heard of this movie. But then I never go back to check and see if they fixed it or not. I really just don't give a damn.
Yeah. Of all things to that, isn't it? So you got Patrick. Attack of the 60-foot centerfolds. What happened to JJ North?
You know, JJ was from New Jersey. I met her in a movie called Vampire Vixens from Venus. And we did a movie together called Hybrid after that. And then I guess I heard she moved back to New Jersey and opened a comic book store, but I haven't heard of her in a long time.
Okay.
There was a big thing about that at the time. Roger Corman wanted a girl named Lisa Boyle to play the 60-foot centerfold. And I said I didn't think she was right. I didn't think that she had the vibe that I was looking for, because to me she was a little maybe too sexy right up front, and JJ had a sort of innocence and normalness, ordinariness about her that I really liked. And so I got Roger off of Lisa Boyle, and then Maria Ford came along and said she wanted to play it, and I said I don't see it. And of course, she's always complaining that nobody will hire her unless she takes her top off. But she was pressing very hard to play the 60-foot centerfold. So she goes to Roger around me and gets Roger to lean on me. And I said, I don't see it, Roger. I said, and I sent him a picture of JJ North. I said, Roger, this is what a centerfold looks like. And he agreed. And he agreed to pay half her airfare and half her hotel fees to fly her here, and I would pay the other half. So I never found Roger to be as cheap and stingy as a lot of people have said. I'm sure that people have different experiences. Everybody does. But my experiences with Roger have always been more than fair, I think.
Okay. How was it being fabulous Freddie Valentine?
You know, that's an interesting aspect. It's funny because it's not, other than the fact that, you know, I'm still involved a little bit with WWE. I don't think about it too much until I go to get up. And then I'm reminded that my lower leg's all pinned together and screwed together and plated together, and my neck is plated together. And I've lost the use of this hand for the most part, which is why I don't, type a lot of stuff. Okay. But I had a great time. It was very much like theater, like being in a play, but with violence. Okay. I mean, you're backstage. Okay. No, I mean, really, you're backstage. You got, you see how big the crowd is that night. You get butterflies in your stomach before you go out. You have to just take a breath and then kick that door open and go. And you have to be somebody else. And I enjoyed it. Sometimes things do get out of hand. I had quite a night with a guy named Abdullah the Butcher. He was a big, huge fellow. Probably weighed about 450 pounds, as I was told. And he stabbed you in the head with a kitchen fork. That was his thing. And there was no rhyme or reason. That went out of the ring almost immediately and into the audience. Then it went out through the double doors into the parking lot. I was going at it on a car with this guy, and then finally found my way back inside. And it was just wild. I didn't know how it would ever end. I'm still not sure how it ended, but sometimes it would be interesting. Kids would attack you. People would hit you with things. And I had a police escort out in Alabama because I had sprayed hairspray in the eyes of the hero, which was a guy named Bob Armstrong, Bullet Bob Armstrong. And I sprayed Bob in the face with hairspray and then knocked him out and won his belt. And it took a police escort to get me out of there. Finally, a little kid ran up with a cow pie and hit me in the face with a cow patty, cow shit right in the face. Right. So how he got through, I'll never know.
Yeah. How'd you do that?
But it gives you something to talk about 20, 30 years later.
So why do VHS?
Okay. What was that?
I've got a VHS of Inner Sanctum here.
Oh yeah, okay.
Did you hate working with Tanya Roberts as it's reported?
No, I didn't hate her. She was frustrating, but when she was fine, she was sweet. She wasn't mean. She was just frustrating.
Okay.
You know, she wasn't a mean person. It was like working with someone who was in the grip of an addiction, and you couldn't rely on them. And they would do crazy things, you know, on set and in ways that they would, you know, like literally pass out, you know, and then she had a husband who I believe was bringing her drugs to the set. I had to bar him from coming to the set because I felt like he was enabling her. And it was just, you know, it's difficult. Movie making is difficult enough. And you add a person like that into an already tense situation, you know, it does create some stuff, you know.
Right. What's the quickest turnaround you've had from writing a script to it being released?
Well, Piranha Women was pretty damn fast. Okay. The show I'm on right now has an incredibly fast turnaround. The ones I did for Oprah Winfrey also had a very fast turnaround. The director's cut was due today, but I only got the film this morning.
Okay.
So I watched it, did my notes, and then the guy will do the notes and I'll watch it again tomorrow. And if I'm satisfied, I'll either send it on or I'll ask for another change of notes and send it on Thursday. But it airs on November 27th, which is no time at all. Everybody thinks we're crazy for trying this, but that's an extremely fast turnaround. And so was Baking Christmas and One Fine Christmas that I did for the Oprah Winfrey people. They were filmed at about the latest you could film a movie for Christmas in the year and still have it on the air around Thanksgiving. Right. But I think nothing was faster than Piranha Women.
Okay. So take a couple more questions and I'll let you go. Professional wrestling is an art. Mrs. NWA, WCW, WWF, WWE, and ECW. Who is on your Mount Rushmore?
That's a good one. I wrestled. I did mostly spot shows, house shows they call them. I did wrestle for Total Impact, which was NWA at the time. I don't know what it is now because I don't follow that one. But to me, who my favorite would be, my favorite wrestlers or the greatest wrestlers. So the greatest wrestlers is kind of like your films. My best films are probably not my favorite films.
Okay.
For different reasons, you know what I'm saying? But Terry Funk, who I wrestled with as a tag team partner, and I finally wrestled against him in a 3-way hardcore one night because I just wanted to, I know it sounds stupid, but I wanted to see what it's like to have Terry Funk hit me in the head and put a spinning toe hold on me. So I wrestled Terry one night, but Terry Funk I think is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Did I have any real favorites? In my mind, I thought, and most people probably don't agree with me, I don't know, but I thought Triple H was what a wrestler should be. He walked the walk, talked the talk. He looked like he looks like he could do what he needed to do. So I see some of the girl wrestlers, and they're very pretty, and they're extremely athletic. It doesn't look for a moment that they're competitive or that they're going to take down. I see them against, Jimmy Snuka's daughter, and I'd say there's no way Snuka's daughter would wrap you and fold you in half. I like The Undertaker. I think he puts on an incredible show, and obviously Ric Flair is probably everybody's favorite. I was never a huge Ric Flair fan, but my favorite wrestler of all time is a guy named Buddy Colt, and most people probably don't even remember him. He was put out of wrestling when his plane crashed in Tampa Bay around 1973, and it killed one wrestler. It broke both of Buddy Colt's legs, put him on a cane, and a couple other guys. I think Mike Sharp was in there, but Buddy Colt had the ability to make you hate him instantly, and that's what a house show is. Some people have months to build up a rivalry on the WWE. They got a little storyline that just keeps going and going. On a house show, you have to establish right now, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. And Buddy Colt, he had a taped thumb, and he would jab you in the throat. He was an ex-Marine with a bleach blonde hair. And that guy, in my mind, and I'm glad to say I got to know him before he passed away. But Buddy Colt was probably, for Fred Ray, Buddy Colt was the greatest wrestler who ever worked the ring.
Okay.
Next to Terry Funk.
All right. This looks like a good question to end on. Volker, any plans going into
Any plans of going into retirement? You know, the business retires you when the phone stops ringing. Me personally, I hate to say it, but ever since I left LA, I've been a much happier person. Once I got out of there, because I left because I was always getting on a plane. I was going to Buffalo or Salt Lake City or whatever it was, and the California landscape was just crazy beyond belief to me. It cost a mint, and they have this incredible state income tax. Florida has none.
Okay.
Gas prices. Okay. I took a photo down the street from my hotel. The top dollar at Sinclair was $6.99 a gallon. It's $3 or something down the street from here. And once I got out of there, I loved it, and I like not working. I've got so many other things that I want to do. But no, I don't plan to stop making. I don't plan to stop making films as long as somebody wants to hire me. It is becoming a young person's, and younger people trying to get into this business will work for less money. I have a rate, and I don't go below my rate. You know, there's a minimum that you have to pay me to get me to show up to where you're filming.
Right.
And a younger guy who may also be very talented, he's trying to get a foothold, so he'll take less than me. And if you want that guy, you should get him. I'm not going to come down to the rate of a new guy in the business. So, but no, I don't have any plans to retire. I don't know. You don't know, because most people, you know, I'm very protective of my personal stuff, which is why I don't take a lot of friend requests on my personal Facebook pages, because that's for my family. That's for my children. That's where you can see where my kids are having breakfast or what we're doing. It doesn't have anything to do with film. And so, and I have some of my relatives are very religious, upstanding people, and they don't need to be exposed to the heathenism of Fred Ray. So I try to protect that. But I have an adopted father who lives here.
Okay.
And I moved back here so that I could keep track of him and look in on him and be here because I didn't want to get a phone call after COVID. I hadn't seen him in a year or more. And I didn't want to get an unfortunate phone call. And so I came back down here to be closer to my dad. And you might know him because he was involved in horror films and stuff as a makeup artist. And he did, you know, low budget, Florida made, you know, movies like Flesh Feast with Veronica Lake. And he did Lon Chaney's makeup in Fireball Jungle. And he did Death Curse of Tartu, where he played the mummified witch doctor. And he played a jellyfish man in this one movie. And you know, and he's 95, and he's got no plans to slow down as fast as that walker will take him. Yes. So that's one of the main reasons that we moved to Fort Lauderdale. And I'm glad I did. I've saved so much money. I mean, I can't even tell you. California lifestyle, very expensive.
I bet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, let's wrap this up then. So I would like to thank you for all your films and all the work. And enjoyed to go through.
Well, good. It's been great talking to you, Volker, and Joe Sherlock. Joe, I don't think I got a question from Joe Sherlock, so I am very disappointed unless I missed it. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read exactly who's sending.
He was the right at the beginning. He asked about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Joe's one of those guys. He's been at it almost as long as I have. We shared voodoo donuts and barbecue last time I saw him.
Right, let's just check. There you go. So nice talking to you, Fred from Volker. There you go.
There you go. So, Volker, are you getting the Rocky DeMarco soundtrack album, or have you already bought it? They don't like you asking questions of them. Oh, okay.
It takes a minute for them to come through.
Thanks for having me. Will this be available for people to watch later, or is this just a one-time thing?
As long as YouTube doesn't take it down, it'll be there. Oh, there you go.
All right. Well, send me a link. I'll put it up for people, and
okay.
Maybe somebody will watch it. Who knows? God bless you.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you everyone in the chat.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
So thank you, Mr. Ray. All right, and thank you everyone else, and good night. I'll see you next time.